You just
There's,
these.
yep.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, turn it on first. And then once you start clicking, we should be going. Give me 2 seconds to presenter view. Okay, now you can click away. Yeah. Oh, wow. This is going to be a lot, isn't it?
A lot of slides?
No, I'm saying it's just a lot of information. Okay.
Where do I point this in?
Yeah, oh, at the computer. Yeah. At this.
I want to go backwards. Go back.
Sorry. Try now.
Oops. Power off. It says it's.
No, yeah, it's good. Okay,
There we go.
Yeah, I didn't have it plugged in all the way. All right, so y'all are welcome to stay.
Now, is there a microphone, or I'm good?
No, we need a microphone. Do you mind walking around with holding it, or would you prefer the lavalier?
I'm going to stay firmly attached. If I start walking around, I'll just start singing. You don't want to hear that.
Oh. Yes, we do. Aren't you in a band? So, do you want to introduce you real quick?
Please.
Okay. Official bio. But thanks so much for joining us. We probably have other people trickling in because I know we had about 8 or so register for this, so those 8 will be trickling in. But thanks for joining us. This is Mr. Bob Dorff. He is with the Greenstreet Group, and today he's going to be talking to you about GSA and VA schedules. So this is just another contracting vehicle that you can use in order to win contracts for your business. If you are brand new to government contracting, I will warn you, this is probably going to be a little bit over your head, but that's okay. It's like being immersed into a foreign language. You will eventually hear stuff you don't understand, and one day it's going to make sense. So, yeah. So, please welcome Mr. Bob Dorff from Greenstreet Group.
Good morning, everyone, both here and out in the virtual world somewhere. What I want to do today is talk about GSA and VA schedules. And has anybody ever had any experience with VA or GSA schedules? Okay. We're going to talk very briefly about the reasons to pursue government business, and I think that's been covered pretty much all morning, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on that. But obviously in the United States, the government is the largest single purchaser of everything. They consider themselves Fortune 1 in almost every industry. Most market sectors, whatever kind of work business you have, anywhere from 18 to over 25% of spending of purchases are by government, whether it be federal, state, or local. But in almost all sectors, at least 20% of the business is purchased by the government. Generally, the government is a very good payer. Federal government probably is the best payer, state, and then local in terms of getting paid properly. I don't know if you've worked with Fortune 100 companies, but a lot of those companies, they're happy to give you business, but once you get it, it's hard to get paid. So they're very smart with their money, and if they can keep it an extra 30 or 60 days, they can do all kinds of things with it. There's a fair chance to earn the business. What the government does in general is they try to level the playing field as much as possible. So they're usually looking for best value, and that means they're looking for a very good price, but they're also looking to support small and minority businesses as they can, and they try to level the playing field so that it's relatively fair for all. There's a strong small business incentive in most government purchases. Certainly at the federal level there is, state and sometimes local. And of course there's billions and billions of dollars in annual purchases. I hear from a lot of people, and I've been doing this for like 15 years, and I've heard a lot of people say that these are the reasons why people don't want to do business with the government. It's rigged, insiders, corporate giants, tax on the government. They listen to Fox News all day and they don't want anything to do with the government. The process is too complicated. It is fairly complicated. There's too much competition. I don't know if that's true. There certainly is in certain markets in the government, very, very competitive. I used to sell directly to the federal government IT equipment, and that is a very competitive market. So if you're selling computers or cabling or whatever it is, that's very tough. So, certainly there's competition both in the commercial as well as the federal space. Too much paperwork. There certainly is a lot of paperwork, but you can sort of, by following the GCA protocol, you can get paperwork done ahead of time, or at least a good jump on it, so that as it comes up, you're prepared. You don't need to do it because your business is great. Well, if your business is great, you're probably you probably don't need it. And the investment hurdle to get an initial contract is just too much. And certainly that investment can be both in dollars if you hire consultants like myself, or just the amount of effort that you have to spend going through the learning cycle. So it's an investment both in dollars and it's importantly time. These are just some numbers. You'll notice that in general, the federal is about equal to all of the state and local spending. So I certainly would not dismiss state and local. And I would say if you're a very small business, first step you should make is once you get some of your basic registrations complete, I would go to your local city, county governments and see if there's opportunities there, because they certainly want to work with the local companies as they can. And there's a chance some of those people may need advantage. And I'm going to treat them respectfully and present your best case, and you might have a good opportunity to do some business. This is the list of in descending order, the government agencies where they spend their dollars. This is somewhat dated information, but you'll see that Department of Defense is the big boy. So if you have products or services that are sellable to the Department of Defense, that's a great place to go. Surprising, I was always surprised to see the Department of Energy is so high on the list, but a lot of their dollars go to managing nuclear weapons. So that's probably, and my guess is there's an awful lot of specialists, an awful lot of good companies that are crowding into that Department of Energy area. And then some of these other areas are more transfer payments, health and human services related to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. A lot of those dollars are going out there, but you can see that the big dog is the Department of Defense out there. By the way, and if anybody wants this presentation, I'm happy to give me your business card. I'm happy to provide it to you. I do a lot of work with GSA, but you can see there's a ton of other contracting vehicles. And when I say that should really say GSA and VA schedules, because they sort of pretty much live in one spot. But most of the GSA schedules are open continuously. That's one of the reasons why they're important. Many of these other schedules have limited open periods, so you have to be ready to pounce. They don't necessarily give people lots of time in order to get those. And I would say if you're doing federal work, GSA is kind of where you need to begin your process in terms of getting contracting, if you want a contract. And we'll spend some more time talking about that as well. But there's a whole series of subcontracts that may be related to GSA, but different departments and agencies manage those. And this is just a sample. These are some of the top ones. Certainly not all of them out there. And I would say if you can get on a TACOM, which is a military contract, if you have services and products that fit those contracts, those can be really good long-term vehicles for your growth. The GSA schedules and VA schedules are certainly powerful as well.
So explain to people, when you say a vehicle, explain again exactly.
Well, most of these contracts are an opportunity to sell to the government. You are pre-establishing, well, you're establishing your qualifications to the government. You're getting certified by the government as a contractor. But most of those contracts do not guarantee any work. So it's a contract vehicle, meaning you have a contract number, a GSA contract number. And we'll see all the schedules that the GA and VA have, but you can get a GSA contract number, but then you are required to find the opportunities and sell against that contract. And you also have sales targets that you have to hit with the government, and if you don't hit those, they pull your contract. So, but vehicle just means that I showed you on the prior slide all the different contracts that are out there. I use contracts and vehicles kind of interchangeably, and I think the government tends to do that as well. Once you've decided to pursue the government contract, you need to begin to investigate the government marketplaces. All of this, almost every agency, whether it be federal, state, or local, they're all online. So as you're watching football or whatever you might be watching, you can sit there and scroll through and see what kind of opportunities are out there. And in most cases, you can get registered so that they will push opportunities out to you. So you can see, and again, much of that, you don't have to have any special registration. I think the process that the GCA has here in terms of getting people on a path is really a strong way to do it. Most companies just kind of do hit or miss, and they know a little. The government's a big elephant, and you sort of learn one area, and then you think you know it all, and then you find out there's tons more. If you follow the protocol that GCA has, I think you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to have a wide breadth of information.
Keep going. I need to check the audio online.
Okay.
Do your thing here. Okay. They're saying that they're not able to hear.
At least in the federal space, one of the things you can do is you can find out who your competitors
are. You're good now.
So in the federal space, you can certainly investigate and see who your primary competitors are. In almost all cases, you can also see what their pricing is. So you can see what government pricing is available. When you're getting any sort of government contract, one of the things they're usually doing is they're investigating your pricing, and you better be competitive, because it used to be, when I started with GSA schedules, if you presented to the government your price list and said, this is my commercial price list, and I'm going to offer the government X% off, and that's the best discount that I offer, they would award you a contract. They no longer do that. They take the items, whether products or services, and they compare that against their database of federal pricing. And if you're not competitive, they'll tell you we can't award you a contract unless you reduce your prices by X, because you won't win any business. And if you don't have a competitive contract with the government, you're not going to win any business anyway. So in general, you sort of can either use professionals, use your own good Google sense, and find out what agencies and departments you want to market to. And if you have any specific skills that are unique only to your company, look in the government database of previous sales and find out what agencies might be close to buying that, and then pursue those. That's what I wrote. Once you've decided to do it, you need to get registered. Certainly the system for award management for the federal space is required. In order to sell to the government, you have to be registered at SAM, and that requires that you have some minimum government competence. You should, if you're in an organization, and I say organization, I'm sort of thinking of somebody who works in an office where there's multiple people. But if you're a lone soldier out there with your business, or just have a few folks who work for you, look at your world of friends and see if they have any particular government organization connections. And if they do, ask them if they know who to talk to about X, Y, and Z service product that you offer, and then reach out to those folks. You should certainly pursue open market opportunities. An open market means if you go to fedviz.gov and type in, we might see this a little bit later, just type in the type of product or service, you'll see any opportunities that are out there. And you can look historically back a year. You can look for just solicitations. You can look for awards. And the nice thing is that database will also show you who bought. Generally, it will show you who bought it. I would take those names and numbers and plug those into the database and do some trickle email marketing to those folks, if that works anymore. I'm suspicious, but I don't. And then I think it's important to get on it. If you're going to do federal marketplace, get on it. You should get on the GSA contract. And that means you have to go through the court. You can do it yourself. You can go to a professional like me. You can go to many other folks that are out there. Let's just talk a little bit about what the schedule is. It's a series of different contracts, which we'll see in a minute, for different products and services. And what it is, it's an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract that you have with the government. GSA schedules are good for 5 years, and you can renew those 3 times. VA schedules, depends on the schedule, they may only be good for 2 years or a year and renewable on a periodic basis. So they're called multiple awards schedules because multiple agencies have access to it. The GSA allows any department agency within the federal government to use their contract. And many non-federal agencies use it as well. I don't know if they still do, but at one time, MARTA used to use the GSA IT contract for IT services. Because what it is, it's a pre-negotiated contract with the federal government, and they just sort of piggyback on that. So it's an opportunity for you to approach departments and agencies with a government-approved price list. Once you have a GSA contract and you have an item out there that's got a price of, let's say, $100, that is your ceiling price. But you can sell that anywhere below that ceiling to any agency that you want. So, it's not a guarantee you're going to get $100, but it is that is a guarantee. That is a negotiated price.
And how often are you allowed to change the price of the schedule?
You can, you're required on all GSA schedules to have those locked in for 1 year, and then you can change your price up to 3 times a year in the out years of the contract. But I would, there's all kinds of rules and regulations about how much you can increase your price. Most of the clients that I work with, they have a commercial price, and GSA price increases are based on their commercial price. To be candid, very few of the companies that I'm working with today are changing prices very often. You know, they're sort of leaving them in place once they have them. But, I'd say because generally the pricing world is kind of stable. You know, material and labor markets are relatively stable. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. You have, as I said before, you have to meet your sales targets. Usually with a GSA contract, they give you 18 to 24 months to hit your initial sales target, but they will throw you off the contract. Yes.
Can you explain what sales targets?
Yeah, for every, when you apply for a GSA contract, they're going to say, well, what is the target of sales that you're going to hit? What are you going to, how much are you going to sell to the government? Now, do you know that? Of course not. Do I know that? No. I always go with whatever the minimum is. So,
You guys know what the minimum?
well, they tell you what the minimum. The minimum is almost always $25,000.
Oh, okay.
So, and so I used to be sales manager for a software company, and I always, when I put my sales plan together, I always put whatever the minimum I could get away with. That was my target. So I would urge you to do the same thing. Big companies, they like to put in big numbers because a certain vice president is watching out for things, and they want to make sure that this thing's going to pay for itself. So, but I always tell my clients to put in the minimum amount. Now, I think at some point in time they're going to change that, and they may look at when you're in the application stage, they may say, well, you only said you're going to do $25,000 a year. You're not worth our time. Who knows?
And so how many people are entering into getting on the schedule yearly? I know there are thousands of schedules.
Well, I think somewhere ahead, I think I had the number of different contract holders that are out there. In terms of how many people sign up every year,
Yes.
I've never kept track of that.
Okay.
I suspect GSA does, but I don't really keep track of it. They probably, most of the contracts in the last couple of years have probably had a net reduction in the number of contractors because they're getting rid of people who aren't selling anything. They seem to think that takes up a lot of their resources. I partially agree, but once somebody has a contract, they should be able to keep it to the end of it. But they seem to think if you're not hitting your numbers regularly, you're done. So I'd say the net result is, in general, they're trying to reduce the number of vendors that they deal with. Even though they talk a good thing about supporting small business, they want the small businesses that they have to be successful. I spent a little bit of time here talking about why federal agencies prefer people with GSA or VA contracts. They know that the agency, the person who's buying products knows that competitive requirements have been met. So if you actually have a competitively negotiated contract, if you have a GSA or VA contract, and for many purchases they can buy directly without having multiple competitors that are out there. So the department or the agency knows that you filed all the proper paperwork, and they're not going to get caught on the back end of the sale by a vendor coming in who's not really prepared to properly fulfill the order. It usually reduces acquisition time by the agency, because if you've already filled out all the FAR forms and so forth correctly, they don't have to worry about that. One of the reasons why the agencies like it is because it will reduce the number of contested awards. There's a bad world out there in the government space. When somebody wins, usually somebody contests the award. I'm working with a client. They won like a $30 million award, and it's been contested in the last year. So it's certainly worth their time to keep pushing on it, but some of these things get out of hand. And the agencies have a much stronger ground to stand on if they have a GSA contract in place. The federal agencies can ask you to put together a blanket purchase agreement, which is really what you'd like to do once you get a GSA or VA contract. You want a blanket purchase agreement where an agency is just buying repetitively from you when they're on a supply. You can negotiate the price, and they will just keep buying stuff. That's really kind of the gold standard for most customers. There's no order limitations. They can place an order for any amount they want out there. In all the GSA contracts and VSA contracts, there is a maximum order amount. However, that's just kind of a tripwire for that department or agency who's buying to look at and see if you fall over a $500,000 tripwire on an order, it just notifies the buying agency that they should theoretically negotiate a better price. They should ask for a greater discount because the pricing is based on a zero to a $500,000 order. So,
I have a question.
yes.
Is it used for products and services?
Yes.
Schedules?
Yes. Yeah. These contracts are products and services, and we'll get into that.
Doesn't matter where your products come from, where you buy in bulk, do they stipulate regulations on, where you order from?
Yes. The question is, does it matter where products come from? And it absolutely does. Yes. GSA schedule orders can count towards all the large agencies, departments, and agencies put together targets for minority and small business, the things that Myra was talking about before, targets for service disabled, women-owned business, whatever. So anything that falls, any of these GSA schedules, they're gonna, if you are a small or minority business, they're gonna be able to hit their targets, and the purchasing folks like that in the government, Go ahead.
Is there a duration or limitation on the VPA? Can you get a blanket purchase agreement? What's a one-time thing or something you just keep your chin with?
Well, most PPAs are for multiple years.
Multiple years.
Now, you got to be careful. Many agencies aren't allowed to fund anything beyond, the fiscal year. So you need to be careful on your buying. Because I've had some clients who had BPA agreements. They were calling, and the government was calling the orders, and they wound up getting into litigation because people who were requesting the product weren't authorized to purchase those products, and the funds weren't available. So it can get sticky. So you just need to be careful. But I mean, generally, a BPA is going to be a good thing for you because it's going to allow you, if you're in a situation where you need financing, you can probably go to your bank or whoever you might get financial aid from. It's going to show you that they show them that there's a dollar potential commitment by the government. So. There's also, if you're on the GSA or VA, if you have a GSA or VA contract, there is a system out there called GSA eBuy, and that is a place where solicitations are posted directly for GSA contractors on them. And so if you go, there's a website out there called fedbizops.gov. That's for all, when orders are over, I believe the minimum is like $25,000, the solicitation has to go to FedBizOps for notification. But if they're less than that, and it's off of a GSA contract, they generally go through GSA eBuy. And you'll be set up and you'll get notification that someone is interested in buying this product and or service. And you can bid on it right from your computer without any paperwork. I would say that's also a site where if it's the executive branch of the government, which is really most departments and agencies, they can order directly from you without going through even a bid process. So if I'm selling plastic bottles, I don't know if they're buying just plastic bottles, but if I'm selling plastic bottles and you have it on the contract, the government can just send you an order through that GSA eBuy. So that's another good place to be. Why vendors prefer GSA schedules? Well, you're pre-approved federal vendors, so there's no skepticism in place by a potential government buyer because they know that you signed off on all the important clauses and agreements with the federal government. It's simplified access to thousands of ordering activities, meaning GSA eBuy. So that GSA eBuy they can go ring the border very quickly off of that. It's good stability of contract. As I said, on GSA, it's good for 5 years as long as you're hitting your sales targets, and then you can renew that up to 3 different times. Okay. VA, it's somewhat different based on the scale, but there is the ability to extend those contracts there. And the government will pay you pretty quickly. Via peak. One of the things you have to agree to on minimum orders is using the government purchasing card. And then if you wish, you can also just use it for all orders. So that's a decision you get to make. And then certainly the contract can leverage you within your company within the federal government. And I would also say you can, if you're one of your big commercial accounts, UPS or whatever, and you tell them that you have a GSA schedule, I think that can help you get a contract with them. It can also protect you in terms of pricing, because one of the things that you do when you negotiate your pricing with GSA, you have to negotiate your commercial sales practices, and that means you have to tell the government what is, who are your best customers and what kind of discounts do you offer them, and you can never be selling your price below what your GSA price is. So you can go back in a large company and say, I'd love to sell this to you for less, but I have a contract with the U.S. government and it says I can't sell below this. And then GSA contractors. So in 2018, about 16,000 GSA contractors are out there. So you can see, it's kind of interesting, the number, it's always interesting to see the number of companies with greater than 500 employees. It's not that many. Lots of small business out there. And you can see GSA contractors as a percentage of all business, pretty small. These are the schedules, and I won't spend a lot of time. I don't know if you can read them, but these are the schedules that are out there. All the schedules have a schedule number and then a description of what that is. The second largest one is the professional services. The biggest one, I think, is on the next page, and that's information technology. And this is IT equipment and services. Now, on a GSA schedule, all these schedules you have, the schedule itself will tell you what products and types of products and services are authorized for that schedule. So let's say that you provide IT services, and maybe you provide printers or something as well. Those could all go on one schedule, and you have to look at what they call the categories or special standard item numbers, the categories which they call them, to see where your products would fit under. And it's possible, let's say you also sold desk chairs. Well, desk chairs and IT equipment don't live on the same schedule, so you need multiple schedules. And generally the GSA only wants you to apply for one schedule at a time. So you'd go after the one that is either offering, you think it's the best one to sell products to the government. Could be chairs, might be better than IT equipment, or vice versa.
When can you apply for an additional one?
I think as soon as you submit, you could.
But they just only want one in the system at a time until you get approved for the. Can you do subcontracting with the schedule? Say like furniture. You work with the company to get the furniture that they need, and you're made one because you have the qualifications for. Well,
the way that, let's say that we're doing furniture, and let's say you were a furniture distributor, and had a furniture store, but you distributed, I don't know, whatever, who's ever furniture. You have multiple manufacturers that you work with. You can have a schedule where you don't manufacture anything. You just have a contract where you have furniture from Steelcase and, I don't know, Stifel, I don't know who the furniture manufacturers are, but you just have their products on your schedule. But the important thing that you have to do is you have to have authorization from those manufacturers to resell.
Exactly, yes, we sell to. Okay.
And that's called a letter of supply, and you have to have a letter of supply. And depending on the contract, they will require a fair amount of detail from the manufacturer, you know, what their commercial sales practices are, you know, their discounting tables and so forth. But then you have to provide the list of those items. And I mean, I have one customer who has, they just do IT product resale. They don't generally even touch the product. And they have, I think, 35 different manufacturers that are on their contract. They have like 15,000 items. So yeah, you don't have to manufacture the products that you sell. You just have to have a authorization letter from that manufacturer to resell. And you know, that's one of the first, in many of the cases that I'm working with, that's one of the first things that we do before we even you know, get down to hard taxes. I try to make sure that they have resale capability. And what I've got a guy out in Norcross, he does security camera type stuff. I think it's for fire and so forth. And they resell the equipment, and then they have their own wraparound services. So they have the services, so they can provide a complete solution to the government.
So you can do that too.
Right. And so let's say you did furniture, you resold furniture. You could do, you could have, I think you could, on a schedule, you could have the design service as well as the setup.
Delivery, setup, and everything too. Okay.
I have a question. Is there a site where we can go to identify what items they are looking for on a scheduled basis?
Wait a minute, repeat that again.
So how would I know if the government is looking to put, not everything goes into a schedule, right? Only certain things, certain products, certain services.
Right.
How would I identify what if my service or my product is something that they're looking to put?
Well, the first place I would start is there is a site called GSAadvantage.gov. And if it's a product, you just type in the type of, you know, the name of the product. If it's a part number, you could plug that in and see if that matches. But let's just say it's a desk chair. Type that in, and pages of desk chairs are going to appear. And then you can look, you can go find the competitor and look at their, you can drill down and you could probably look at their whole price list.
Okay, so GSAadvantage.gov will have a list of whatever, let's say keyword,
Yeah,
any plastic bottles that they previously purchased.
Right.
Will show up.
Not previous, those are for sale to the government.
Oh, no.
If you type in, if you go to fbo.gov, and you type in that plastic bottle, and you could just say, I want to just look at awards over the last year, you can do that. There's also a website, it's a little more work, it's called fpds.gov, it's a Federal Procurement Data System. And you can set up, and I think you can go review that without signing up. You could go type in plastic bottle there, and that will show you history of purchase by the government.
Good.
And that will show you the company as well as the total amount.
I guess my thought is about the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows previously purchased items, but does that say that those things can be purchased on the schedule? Like,
Well, now there's another site. It's called GSA eLibrary, and you have to go to the specific. There's a I don't even know if I have that on here.
GSA eLibrary.
.gov. Yeah.
Okay.
And there is a list of all the schedules, and you can click on the schedule. I don't even know if No, I don't know how to use somebody else's. I barely know how to use mine. But, if you go to GSA eLibrary, and let's say you know it's computer related, you can go to Schedule 71, and then you can, or set Schedule 70, you can click on that, and it will show you all the different categories of products or work that are available. And then you have to figure out, does that fit what I do? The easier way to find it is to go to GSA eLibrary and type in plastic bottle, and that's going to show you vendors who have contracts, and if you drill down, it will show you both the contract and the category. They call it SIN number, SIN, SIN number for standard item number. That's the category of product or work that things go under. But if you're working with somebody like me, you provide the list of stuff that you want to sell, and that's generally my responsibility. Or if you're working with somebody else, or if you're a GCA member, they'll help you figure that out as well, I would think.
I'm not sure if, I think I know part of what you were asking. I know I went to the VA website, and over to the right, it has a link that says doing business with the VA, and it will post what they're looking for the contracting, and whether it's GSA or
there's also a very nice search on VA. It's called NAC. If you go there and if you click on that and you find the item, it will show you the SIN number. It won't show you it'll show you the category, but it won't show you the actual VA schedule that it's on. But there's only 9 schedules that are out there, and sometimes it's hard to know the actual category, which is what that NAC is good for, VA NAC. But knowing the schedule is a little bit easier because they're pretty restricted. There's pharmaceuticals, there's medical services, there's mobility products and services, there's tests, medical tests. All right, so these are all the schedules that are out there. Let me just go back. If you'll notice here on the right there, it says professional allied health service staffing. That's a VA schedule. Laboratory testing and analysis services, pharmaceutical and drugs, medical equipment, and then dental, patient mobility, x-rays, basically testing, and then clinical analyzers, laboratory, cost per test. So. And by the way, for VA, a lot of times you have to have your products or services FDA certified, so you gotta be careful there. There are some schedules that are kind of very tricky to work with. Let's see here. This hardware superstore 51V, big schedule, and it's like all the products that you'd ever see at a hardware store. The bad news for most small businesses is you're gonna have a hard time getting on schedule because they require that either you are a hardware store or you are offering enough products that's worth their time. Otherwise, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to go find some big guys in this world and provide letters of supply so that they will put your products on their schedule. Because if you just come at them with one product or 2 or 5 or 10, you're probably not going to get a contract. So. You have to be in business. Some of the minimum requirements, you have to be in business for 2 years. You should. They're saying minimum revenue of $25,000 per year. They don't seem to. I haven't run into that very often, and that actually seems like kind of a low number. But if you've been in business for 2 years, you can show that you're profitable. I think you're in good shape. You do have to provide 2 years of financials, balance sheet and income statement. They're specifically concerned about your ability to sort of carry, fulfill an order and wait for payment. So they're looking for a current ratio, current assets over current liabilities of 1.5 or greater. That means you've got cash on hand. The big thing on a VA or a GSA schedule is you have to demonstrate that you have experience selling the products and services that you're offering the government. I can't go to the government and say that, I do nuclear testing or whatever, unless I have a company that does that. So you have, and the way the government has you demonstrate that is we have to provide invoices, sample copies of invoices to the government for customers.
Do you know if that's waivable for like certain cases where you could not work your business, say like for military duty, something like that? I mean,
I personally, I've never run into that, but I don't know that is not possibility. And the way I would address that is I would reach out to contracting officers before I submit it.
Because I know there have been certain entities for signing up with like local government, but when they're trying to verify if you're a disadvantaged business for the revenue that you bring in, because that's, they was able to waive that with just your tax returns if you weren't able to work your business. Like because I was on military duty for a couple of years. So.
Well, I mean, normally what's going to happen?
I'm not sure about GSA.
Yeah. Yeah, if you had a business and it sort of became inactive,
yeah,
I would say if hiatus, then if you can demonstrate prior years, that might be acceptable, and then a letter from you stating that you were on military service from X to X. But again, I would probably want to confirm that before I went through the process of doing all the GSA paperwork.
So you can't contact the contracting.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been working in it long enough. I have. Yeah. Right. But you can certainly, there's emails, and you can certainly go to the help desk and tell them what your issue is, and they'll get back to you at some point in time. You can't be debarred from doing business with the government. In other words, you can't be sued by the government. You can't have had a contract withdrawn, and you can't, and this may specifically apply to you, you can't have slave labor. They don't like that. And you had asked the question earlier about the products. They have to be trade compliant. That means that products from China are no.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was getting,
right.
a little bit of what I was getting at,
right.
And I'm, run across some other distributors, people that are trying to do business with the government, like Costa Rica,
right.
And that was through a summit I went to, but I know they can't be embargoed or
right.
Or anything like that, but.
Yeah, and if you go to, if you just type in GSA Trade Agreement Act, there's usually up-to-date lists that are posted out there of countries that are compliant and not. I mean, the ones I know of, obviously North Korea, Cuba. I don't think Vietnam is not trade compliant. I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure.
Certain things, Russia is, because I've had that come across.
It may or may not be. I don't know.
It's only on certain things I think they're trying to get away from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked about the letter supply. So if you're not the manufacturer of the product, you need a letter supply from the manufacturer. And what that letter basically says is that they're going to provide you with continuous flow of product throughout the contract. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Basically, the registration stuff that you certainly need DUNS number. You have to know what your figure out what your NAICS code is. Small business. I mean, if you're just a small business like myself, I'm self-certified. But I don't know what the rules are. I guess there are some new rules about women-owned business. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a few, and some of the additional certifications that they can assist you with.
Right.
Went to a few of those classes, and they do good classes
Right.
on that, and they will help you figure some of those things out about the new rules and regulations regarding.
I can tell you that I can tell you in the past, I've had companies where, you know, the husband starts a business under his wife's name, and they're pretty good at not letting that fly.
Yeah,
so.
They've got it really figured, and they've been putting it out there too. It's no more just, oh, my wife wants 51% of the business, or, you know, you put veteran status and everything else. They're getting really looking into the financials. And there's certain requirements, like them actually being there at the company, running things, and not just, you know, you have to prove a bit more.
I was surprised to find that women-owned small businesses are certified only for certain types of businesses. So you can't just be a bottle maker. There is a list of what type of business that you are doing, or what kind of product that you are selling, to determine if you can qualify for the women-owned small business criteria.
I've never heard that, but.
Are you sure that just even for the NACOs? That is, because I know there's two separate.
Like when you go to certified, are you certified?
Well, for what I'm doing right now, the women-owned and the only one I have to use is the veteran self-certified.
When you go for the women-owned business, like women-owned businesses have to certify through an organization.
Yeah.
And there is a list of what you can certify as, what kind of service or product you offer to qualify you as a woman-owned small business. It's not just everything.
I have never heard that, but it's, you know, who knows? It does sound like it's a man's world rule. But
it probably is, you know, maybe which organization you're going through to do the certified.
Now,
the list is government that.
It is.
Now there are, by the way, there are a couple of schedules that I think are for small business only. You know, anybody but large, and I think that's the temporary employment agency stuff. So, and then for veteran-owned, if you have a DD 214, you're good, and I don't think there's anything else you have to do.
Well, the VA certifies that they say the last person I talked to about who just got his certification in medical supplies, he said it took like 4 months. It took him 4 months, but supposedly they're trying to up the process to a couple of months is what it typically supposed to take. But he said his recently they a little bit behind, so it took him 4 months, and that was a few months ago. When I talked to this gentleman.
If you do a GSA schedule, or if you do most VAs, they do need open ratings, past performance. So you need to submit anywhere from 6 to 20 companies as reference, which they'll go do, and that's cost a couple $100 to do that. I'm not going to go through all of the set-asides. I can just tell you that certainly if you qualify as any of the socioeconomic small business subcategories, it can be advantageous for you. And certainly you should take advantage of that where you can. You know, and I'm putting together where you could start some of the links and so forth, but certainly this does not mean you shouldn't support and be part of GCA, because I think they have a much more regimented, good process to follow. There's a listing, I think it's, there's a listing here of all of the newsletters and so forth that are out there. We talked about FBO. We talked about FBO.gov. There's some general education at the Vendor Support Center. You can vsc.gsa.gov. You can go there. Here's the. This is the one that you wanted for the GSA Vendors.
Yeah.
That's a nice link. We talked about knowing who your competitors are, registering an FPDS or just going to fpds.gov and running some reports. You want to attend any procurement outreach that they have. I don't know much about social media. All the agencies are trying to get on social media, but that's beyond me at this point. Finding events, just a whole bunch of links that are out there. You always want to go to the Small Business Office of Small Business Utilization. They're going to have extra help for small businesses. And I think events are important. It's a good way to meet, get to know as many people as possible. It's kind of funny. I was in sales for 35 years. I'm relatively antisocial, but I'm not a great networker. But I think the more you network in business, the better off you be. And really, when I think of networking, I think the best networkers are people who bring themselves, their true selves, and also try to help. That's what you're going to have the best future partners, I think. And then this is all the classes and so forth that are online at the Vendor Support Center. And just go to vsc.gsa.gov and you can see what's there. Got to be careful, by the way. There is this ability. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ability One program, but that is products that are manufactured by disabled handicapped folks. So if you're selling product, you need to probably check Ability One to make sure the products that you're providing aren't being done by Ability One, because if they are, you're out. Now, there is the capability, Ability One does do partnerships with business, so it's possible that they could even be a source, Ability One could be a source for you to leverage your organization. I don't know much about the partnership program, but it's all out there, Ability One. But be careful before you go chasing down too far. Make sure that your product's not listed on Ability. And I think they have some search tools out there. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to do some business in Korea. One of the companies that I was just being asked about yesterday, they remanufacture toner cartridges, and toner cartridges in general now being sold via Ability One. So not much opportunity there unless they start a partnership. So. Once you're on contract, then you've got to they have modifications that happen all the time, and you can make changes to your contract, you can add things to your contract. If you ever decide to go and get on a contract, I would put as much on it as you possibly can, and so that you don't have to go through the modification process. The modification process isn't that hard, but it's just additional work, and you can do it on the front end to show. And there's an email that will get to me, robert.dorff@greenstreetgroup.com. I also have an old Mindspring account too. Bob Dorff at Mindspring. Questions? think we've been pretty good about. Any questions? Yes.
Stephanie, you've already went over this. I apologize, I was tardy. But if you were not interested in becoming or the corporation being on a GSA schedule,
Right.
but you wanted to leverage some of the people or some of the businesses that are on schedule, but they're larger
Right.
businesses,
Right.
how would I go about doing that?
Well, if you, that's a good question. We sort of covered it, but not in any great detail. If you, let's see. If you go out to this, the GSA e-library, what kind of products or services are you?
Service, project management, and processing.
Okay, I think there's a professional services schedule out there. It's called OO Corp is the number. If you go to this GSA e-library, and I think it's the first schedule on the list, you click on that schedule, you can download all of the contractors that are on that have a contract. There's a spreadsheet, and they all have an email address and they all have a phone number. And they also show the socioeconomic category. And for some reason, the government doesn't like to use large. They have O for other. But you would probably want to reach out to all those companies that are large, maybe. You could also just reach out to small companies and say, I offer these services. I'd like to be a subcontractor for you. And if you can possibly provide I don't think the initial contact would be you want to provide a price list, but I think you want to be prepared to offer that when it's asked for. The big companies, a lot of times they will direct you to, and you probably know this as better as well as I do, that a lot of the big companies, they direct you to a vendor site where you have to go fill out a bunch of stuff. You should certainly do that if you think they're a good one. You can use that FPDS site. Go with fpds.gov and type in project manager or whatever and see what companies are out there selling that service. Maybe those are the ones you can go to. And obviously, if everything else is equal, pick go to the local geography. If you want to move to California, find the opportunities there.
I mean, a lot of federal governments, and I learned this at a summit I went to where they had all the big contractors, and a lot of them have an office of minority programs, and they know who those people are, and they can help you. That's the reason that they're to help minorities and women, because that's their big push for set size. Yeah, I didn't even know they had, they say you find on their websites too, say like NASA, which is a big federal contractor and on the GSA schedule. They have that program on their website. Yeah, and because they have a bunch of companies under them, and I mean it's really pretty cool because they had a conference here in Atlanta back in April or May, and I found out on Eventbrite, and it was a 3-day summit. But if you wanted to do business with them, they only allowed you to come on the third day, the last day, and to do the meetups with the prime contractors. And I got more information than I did just reading and going to classes on the federal contract, and it helped jumpstart me like really far because I got to talk to the people that in office, as well as how to market my service to better fulfill the federal government contracting. So I'm sure there's going to be another one next year because they're trying to make it an incubator. So, I would look up like summits, federal contracting summits. And I know they have some, they had another one in Virginia, and they have them in different places. So if you got a budget to travel and, the ability to go out high, I recommend. Yeah, it's kind of making contest like you said.
Right, but this e-library list where it shows all the contracts, it also shows all the government. If you drill down into the spreadsheet, it'll show you all of the contractors' email addresses and
Yeah.
So that can be useful. And yeah, you need to dig as deep. There's a lot of information that the government throws out there. So you should certainly dig into that. Before I went and knocked on doors, especially if it's government related, I would really make sure I have a SAM registration in place. So, because that's going to make sure that you've got your DUNS and your NAICS code and all that good stuff. So and then whenever I went to a meeting, I'd always have, I preferred to do just one page, but if you have a,
Yeah, they asked for that a lot, but there was a lot of people that was just.
and if you need capability statements, just Google that and see something. You're gonna say, I'll send you mine. I mean, there's nothing special about it. I don't think mine is that good. But you have to hand them something. So.
And the Small Business Association, they help you define, they can help you with your capability statement, give you examples as well. The one downtown is the one I want to go to.
Other questions? Good.
Just gonna say I create capabilities.
Oh, there you go. Pam, did you have a question? All right, I guess we're done. Appreciate your time. And reach out to me if you would like the presentation. I don't know how to shut this guy down.
Thank you so much.